What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings podcast studio. And I am joined today by a friend of a Todd. Mr. Rob Duenas is here with me today. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, James?
Man, I'm good. We got a lot of Todds in our life.
we have
We got
the tale of two
Beats.
Todds.
We got the tale of two Todds. We got the Beats and the McFarlane.
Yeah.
Those are pretty prolific Todds to be associated with.
A little bit. Comic-Con.
A little bit.
They're both going to be at Comic-Con, but I will not. So.
Oh, you're not making it this year?
Nah, not this year. Probably next year when I got something. I only go when there's something to promote now. I'm from San Diego. I grew up going to, my first Comic-Con was San Diego in 92.
Ooh,
so when
way back.
Yeah, I didn't even know what Image Comics was, I knew Todd from the Spider-Man comic when I would randomly be able to get one because it was only, you only get them at 7-Eleven, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, for me, it was Circle K. I would ride my bike down to the Circle K, and I would grab my comics off the rack there.
Circle K was dope. They had the Neo Geo, so I was able to play.
Yeah,
I was able to play like the Nom 75.
Yeah. Well, and having that autonomy, I mean, parents, finally letting me venture from the house, and you can ride your bike, a mile up the road to the Circle K and get your comics and stuff, and
get you a Charleston shoe.
And my little cardboard cheeseburger type of thing that they've, those gross little gas station burgers.
Yeah. My favorite was when they tried to get the biscuits, the breakfast sandwich. It was like a biscuit, and you're like it's almost styrofoam, but with butter.
Exactly.
Yeah, buttered styrofoam.
And when you're that age, you're just like consuming it. You don't think much of it.
You bought that and the bag of the mini powdered donuts.
Of course.
Just food.
That's what you did, right?
I have a high metabolism. Yeah.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Well, so we have that mutual connection with Mr. Beats. And I like to say any friend of Todd Beats is a friend of mine. So how did you become acquainted with Todd? Was this a con connection, or how did you guys meet?
No, he hit me up on Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah, he just I guess he had followed some of my work. At the time I was doing a lot of like watercolor, these weird splatter paintings. I called like the saucy style or whatever. Really, it was just because I was doing this stuff out of like a reaction to all my digital work. Like all my work was really clean, and I was just like, need something else here, just throwing paint at a board. But it caught his eye, and then he just hit me up, and we've been like Instagram DM friends, really.
Okay.
Just for years, so anytime he was like
slid into your DMs, as they say,
just like McFarlane did the same thing, right?
This is what I'm telling people, man.
Yeah.
I had the EOC, the EIC, Mr. Thomas Healy on here, and he's like, you'd be surprised. Todd's like scrolling the hashtag comic art on Instagram at like 2 a.m. and messaging me, hey, look at this guy, look at that guy.
Yeah, I was just chatting with Thomas this morning. They're on their way to San Diego right now. So
nice.
turned in a couple covers they're going to announce. So.
Sweet.
Thomas is a good people. People don't know Thomas Healy is the editor-in-chief over at Todd McFarlane Productions. I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to say,
you're good. Not
only is he a good dude, he's had like a fantastically interesting life. Like he used to be a magician, like all sorts of stuff. Like if you want to never have a boring conversation, just talk to Thomas about everything that dude's experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was great. It was awesome having him on. And yeah, it's just you never know who's going to see your work these days with that kind of ability to get it out there and put it on Instagram. So sounds like that's kind of how you got one of your bigger breaks in your career, right?
I've gotten every break. So I started working at Toys for Bob. I was at Toys for Bob for 3 years working on Crash Bandicoot and Spyro Reignited. I got that from DeviantArt.
Okay.
And that wasn't even like my reach isn't, I don't have like the biggest followers. I've been on DeviantArt since 2005, right? I'm like, it doesn't cost me anything. I just stay on there.
Yeah.
I don't even have 1 million page views. Like I've never hit that number. But what I have found is you can get at least one person, right? I guess I can reach one person who could cut a check, or make a deal, you're good to go. So I had put up this fan art of Crash Bandicoot in 2012, again, as a reaction to like, I was working in video game magazines and I had seen this Crash Bandicoot game that had not been released. They had internal footage, right? And I was like, and it had been there for years, but I was like, what is this? And the guy who owned it, Dave Halverson, Dave was like, oh, this is a game they never made. And I'm like, and he looks so like Owen Wilson. Describe it. I'm like, but Crash was like, yeah, he's a little bit of a slacker, but he also had like a Tasmanian devil aspect to him. Yeah. So I was like, what if I just did like this really like psycho looking Crash? Just I was like, whatever, something that would never get approved. That's like my thing. This would never get approved by editorial. And then 5 years later, they saw that, and because it was different, right? They were like, hey, you want to do some sketches, you know? And then that put me. That was, you know, I did like couple games, and I did Crash Bandicoot 4, Spyro Reignited, Crash Team Rumble, and an unannounced game that never got announced that before they got shuttled a bit. So, but that's from being on DeviantArt. So all my real big wins so far have just come from being randomly on different social media platforms.
Yeah. What was the feeling like when TMP slid into the DMs and you were like, wait, is this really somebody from there?
Well, I did check to see if it was official, because it was Todd. It wasn't like TMP. It was just Todd. Yeah. But I mean, I had been following Todd for years, so I knew, you know, it was Todd. What was funny, because at the end of my run at Toys for Bob, we were working with Blizzard specifically on Overwatch. And initially they had thought maybe we would try to bring Overwatch characters into this multiplayer game we were developing, so it would be like in our Toys for Bob animated style. They didn't want to do that. So instead, they brought us, me and Nicholas Cole, and a few other artists, into Blizzard to work on Overwatch 2. And that lasted for about a month or two until they didn't want to continue. They didn't like what we were doing, essentially. And look, say what you want about me. I'm not the world's greatest artist, but Nicholas Cole is. Like, if you don't know Nicholas Cole, he is one of the world's greatest artists, and they didn't like nothing he did either, you know? So I was like, but I was lamenting because they had me like working on, they gave me a sketch of a costume, and I was working on this for like almost 3 weeks, you know? And I'm like, every Toys for Bob, we would do everything fast. I'm like, what is this? And I was talking to my art director, who's this guy named Ron Key. And Ron's a really guy. He's former MMA, dude. Like he's been in the game industry for years. And he goes, you know, Rob, because I did this Lobo thing on my side. I was like, I know I could draw. They made me thinking I can't draw, right? And I'm like, I did this thing. And he goes, you know, Rob, you should be just drawing Spawn or something, you know? I was like, well, Ron, who's going to make that happen? You know what I mean? It's not like I'm out there pitching pages to Todd McFarlane or anything. I don't really have the house style. So I don't see how that's ever going to happen. Cut to 2 years later, drawing Spawn, right? Well, that's just, you know, you just never know.
Maybe you kind of put it out there into the ether.
Yeah, I don't believe in that, but I do think that opportunities do come at like inopportune times. They always come when you least expect them. So what happened?
Todd Beats would believe how that works because he's so meta these days. You know, he'd say you spoke it into existence.
Yeah, but I told Todd, I'm like, yeah, but I've seen Bosnia, so like, like you've lived a comfortable life. If you know, I'm glad you believe, and that's positive, and I want people to think positive. But I also know the world, you know. Like, a few years in the Army will change your opinion on some of those ideas. But I would say this: I had this sketch of Bane. Of all things, there was a buddy of mine who was struggling with construction and character design back in 2016, 2017. And I had been giving him advice, but it wasn't working. So I would say, if I do weird sketches, you can finish them and use them as commissions. It's fine. But what I want you to do is rebuild the construction so you can learn shape design and silhouette design. That's the trick. Yeah. I'll draw this stuff. And so he was doing that, but I did this Bane. It was like big, chonky, like, again, something that would never get approved. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't want you to touch this. Like, I'll do something with this. Like, I just knew that was one. And then I got the Toys for Bob. When I got out of all that, I went back to that Bane, right? And I did like a color pencil version and a digital version. I kind of like, I don't know why, but I posted this thing, and that was right when Todd got the DC. toy license. And so he never confirmed this to me, but he must have been like just looking, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what the Bane ended up on his map, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so then he looked through, and it was funny. I was like, because he liked a few things and they were all non-comics related. It was like caricatures that I had done. So he was looking for variety.
Yeah.
You know, like, and stuff.
So when he reached out to you, did he have a project in mind for you? Or I know when I talked to Thomas Nalick, when Todd, reached out to have a meeting with him, he basically asked Thomas, like, what do you like to draw? And then he's like, okay, well, let me get back to you. And then a while later, he gets back to him with like the Salmon Twitch things. So what was the process like with your experience?
Well, I mean, yeah, in DMs, he goes, hey, bud, you want to draw some Spawn Kills? Draw some Spawn Kills comics. He wanted to do Spawn Kills 3 was what it was pitched as. And,
right. But
I say, yeah, because I'm like, sure. I will draw anything Spawn. So we did a meeting, and it was going to be Spawn Kill 3. He did ask me what I wanted to draw. And because he goes, I'm not going to do the voice, but he goes,
yeah.
Todd, I love Todd's voice. My whole life, I've been listening to Todd's.
You and me both. I have the comic book greats VHS tapes over there on the shelf.
I was at the '93 Peter David thing.
Oh, nice! So he took his shirt off.
Yeah, he took his shirt off. I was just like, I love comics. Like, I had to go to high school. Like, how do you explain that experience, right?
Right.
I just figured I'd never be able to watch it again. It's on YouTube. But he has the best dialect ever. However, he did go, he said, when Brett Booth signed on to Gunslinger, that was his example. He goes, when Brett Booth came on, I asked him what he wanted to draw, and he said dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
I want to draw dinosaurs. So that's why dinosaurs are in the book. And I was like, okay, that's that. Okay. I was like, well, I told him I can draw dinosaurs whenever I want. I said, I've always wanted to draw all your characters. I want to draw the toys. I want to draw all the characters. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get another shot at this, but in my head, I didn't tell him that, right? Yeah. I want to draw all your characters. So that's where he then said, what if Spawn kills every Spawn so Rob can draw all the Spawns? And he was going to write it initially. And so the initial opening of the book that takes place at the convention was actually Todd's script.
Okay.
Like plot script. Everything's plot script at that company, and which I like. And then he didn't write any more. Like, I drew all of it.
Yeah.
I drew the hell out of it. Like that 2-page spread is me. Like, I blew stuff out. I'm like, we could do this crazy stuff in the book. We can add all the, because initially it was just a convention. Todd had it. And I don't know if you've ever read any of the Spawn Kills books, but the first trade paperback takes place at it, like a Comic-Con, like San Diego Comic-Con. And in my head, I'm like, you already did that. Like, what can I add to it? And so I was like, what if it was a Spawn Con? Like, it's just a funny play on the words. I didn't know there was an actual Spawn Con. Like,
is there?
Yeah, this guy, Brandon Strait, and them just had started that year doing a Spawn Con.
Wow.
I didn't know, but I took Spawn, and then I made, because I started my career in licensed apparel, like what you're wearing there for Mad Engine.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you saw recently Zendaya wear a t-shirt, a Spider-Man shirt, that's my shirt.
Yep. Nice, man.
I did that based off of Mike Diodato interior page in Spider-Man 517 in 2006.
Nice.
Like, for Mad Engine. It was like one of the first things I ever did. And it was that was a story in of itself. But I have a lot of typography, like, so I just drew it all in that, the whoever did the logo, Olaf or Stacey, or whoever did that logo for him, I did the same thing. And then the SpawnCon people hit me up and they were like, you put our logo in it too. And I'm like, yeah, like,
yeah,
that's right. Like, sure, like, I don't know, I just wanted to draw every, and I mean, not just every Spawn, I wanted to make up tons of, so I filled it with every kind of idea. Like, there's Jay and Silent Spawn in the background.
Nice.
You know what I mean? There's like Howard Spawn, Spawn Formers, it is every variant you could think of in that book. Yeah.
So you got to go buck wild with it then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, John Layman ended up eventually getting hired, and he wrote like Chew, and he's written for DC for years. He was editor in chief of even at Wildstorm for back in the early 2000s, a long time ago. And John's a pretty good dude, but like, he'd give me these like pages where just characters were like talking, and I'm like, aren't the most captivating characters to look at when they speak. You know what I mean? Like you can do so much. It's just like a little chibi spawn, you know? So I was like, well, I'll just put this stuff in the background, you know, like, and I would fill it with every stupid Spawn toy I could think of, you know, like, cause I was there from the beginning, from the launch of the toys. And I used to go to their booth. In fact, on the cover of the first Spawn Kills, there's this Violator mini truck I drew, right? And it's got this big tongue hanging out. And this comes from when they did that first line, there was a Violator truck, right? But it didn't have no tongue. And I don't know if you know anything about Violator, but the tongue is like the thing, right?
Big part of it, yeah.
Right. So the next year in 93, they had this booth in the back, the toy section specifically. It was like a corner booth. And there was this elderly woman, like in her 50s, working there, right? She was super cool. But I'm like, hey, you know, the problem I had with the first line was that tongue, they didn't have a tongue. It should have had like, you know, sticky hand, like a sticky hand. You could reach out and stick you like that. You just could reach out and stick the Spawn. And she looked at me, aren't you a little old to be playing with the toys? I said, you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
What do you think's buying all this stuff?
Exactly.
So that was a chance to, you know, to put that. But I wanted that truck in the book. And John, I kept saying, you gotta put the truck in the book. And he didn't put it in the book. And anytime I do an interview, I just remind everyone he didn't do that. Just to
rub it in a needle in a little bit.
It was like, it would have been great, you know?
Well, let's rewind a little bit. So we talked a little bit of the days, you know, being younger and going and get comics off the rack and all of that. Does that love of comics kind of start around that early Image days, or were you into comics prior to that?
Was into comic characters. We didn't have a comic shop. I grew up in San Diego, but specifically, like, majority of my childhood was in East County. So it was more like something like the place called Lakeside. At the time, Lakeside was very Western. Like, they have a rodeo. And so, like, the 7-Eleven and the Circle K were the only place. There was a comic shop in the early 80s, but I wasn't allowed in there. Like, I don't know. It was just like not kid friendly. Yeah. One of those really old school ones.
Right.
But when we would go to the Crown Books or the mall, right, there'd be Garfield comic strip things. I could get that. But eventually around 87, 86 or so, the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel, and that airbrushed Art Deco, which really to me is the proto animated series look, because it was that one on the black with the airbrush.
Yes.
Which, you know, and I was like, I was like, what is, you know, Art Deco Batman? I knew Batman from Adam West and like Super Friends, which was cool, but not like this. So that, and then the first publishing Turtles collections. If people don't know about the first publishing, there was these series of, it was 4 volumes, magazine size. So they were oversized, full color, painted. And they did it in the same style. Steve Levine, who did all the lettering, did the coloring, and he painted it with acrylic and gouache and airbrush, the same as the Dark Knight Returns.
Right.
And they were able to take all the zip, because I guess before they did their duotone wash, they would photocopy their stuff onto duotone boards. You know?
Okay.
And so before they did that, they had copies of the line art before the duotone. So they were able to take those clean lines and have them painted.
Oh, nice.
And so that Turtles, the Mirage Turtles and that Dark Knight Returns, that is my only comics really from 87 to 92.
I mean, those are some good ones to start out with. Like, that's iconic stuff.
Yeah, and I redrew every page of all of them, you know.
Well, that's a perfect segue, because I was going to say, like, was it comics that you got you into drawing and art, or was the love of art there before? Garfield, okay.
And it wasn't the like writing. I never thought it was funny, or it didn't, you know, it was the shape design. Like, I had to think about this, because it was like, I liked the way mugs were drawn, like the cups or pencils or bowls or forks. Like, I could tell there was a design to everything.
Right.
You know, and then eventually when my mind got older, it was Garfield for the art, but Bill Watterson, Calvin Hobbes, and Outland were the two that, like, I stuck with Outland, Bloom County Outland, and Calvin and Hobbes, right? So yeah.
And at what point did you start to think about, you know, taking art seriously and kind of pursuing it as
since day one, dude.
Career?
No, I was told, I had an uncle who was a really nice guy. He was his mind was stuck in the 50s. Everything in his house was 50s. But he would tell me, he was the nicest dude, never raised a hand at me, but he said one time he wanted to kill me because when my grandmother passed, she left him her 68 sky blue Dodge with the white top roof, you know?
Yep.
And apparently I took a paint roller I was painting.
Oh
no. Because I guess, when I'm like 2 or 3. So like I've been drawing and coloring since day one. And the only other job I ever wanted was like trial lawyer or Ghostbuster. Like it really wasn't like I wanted to be, like A Few Good Men or I wanted to be catching ghosts.
Now, did you decide to start seeking formal training in art?
Yeah, I mean, well, I always took art classes, like even in junior high, and through high school. But quickly you find out that those are just like, you're just breezing through one of everything kind of thing. And there's no specialization. There was for a period of time this was big. You might remember this. There was these art instruction schools, AIS, right? They used to have these commercials and they'd send you like a thing. Charles Schultz actually started there. He was an instructor there. And so, it was an expensive it was expensive. It was like $5,000 or something.
Yep.
But in the 90s, I got a stepmother and she pushed my dad to invest in that. And I did that course. I wasn't very good at it though. It really wasn't. And mostly I think it was because I learned better audibly than reading. Right. Yeah. So I would learn more. How I learned the most was when I started going to Comic-Con. I didn't bring a portfolio because I'm a kid. What am I gonna? But what I would do is at the time, portfolio reviews were huge because that boom, right? Yes. Everyone that boom. I mean, people were going, I could become a millionaire, I love it, whatever. But I would go there and there'd be these long lines. And because I was like 13, 15, they were cool with it. I would stand at the front and just watch the portfolio reviews. So I would see 100, right? And I'd see all the different styles and I'd get all this. And when they spoke what was being said, and they said, about construction and volume drawing and learning perspective or storytelling, and don't swipe from a bunch of comics and create your own comic. Like I learned more from that, but I had to essentially teach myself. Like I even eventually went to an art college, the Art Institute of San Diego, under their 2D animation program, thinking that would make me better. I don't want to be an animator, but I'm like, I know animation will make me a better artist and I'll learn how to move characters into 3D volume better than I could. And then they switched that platform to 3D and I just did not quit. I should have quit. So I've just had to teach myself continually. I think the thing that helped settle me on like putting my thoughts into paper was, and figuring it out really was in 2003 and 4 when Gnomon first came out with these DVDs.
Oh yeah, I've got some of those. Yeah,
I got them all. I bought them all.
I have the Platt one and most of the Finch stuff. Yeah.
Right, but it was specifically the Scott Robertson intro to perspective.
I don't have that one.
Scott Robertson is probably the best perspective artist of all time. Taught at Pasadena College of Art is where I should have gone. But it's very technical, and I've burned these things. So anytime an artist wants to see something, because they don't make them available anymore, you can't get them. But
we'll have to talk offline.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. But I always go do this. I did this for a year, no fan art. I just did this while I was in college and working at Kinko, and this solved my perspective thing. But it's very technical and they tend to quit. I've never met anyone who stuck with it other than myself, but it really worked. You learn how to draw from center, reconstruct. But then I had that, and then there was Feng Shu, right? And Feng Shu was a industrial light and magic concept artist, big on the prequels, especially came in on Attack of the Clones, brilliant artist. And he was doing the thing I had been doing since junior high, which when I was in junior high, I didn't understand foreshortening. Remember like Marvel, the comics way, and they would give you a stick figure and you had to put the shapes. And I'm like, first I didn't know you're supposed to put the shapes on top of the stick figure. I thought you had to draw it 4 times. I didn't even, I didn't get this. But what I started to realize was shadows, because I was making a gesture like this one day in class. I don't know how to do this thing. And on the shadow, I saw my silhouette of my hand doing like this, and I saw that shape. When I saw that, the residual image of my hand was in the shadow. So what I did was got a marker, right? And would just blob in the shadow, right? And I would draw into it. And once I started to see into shapes, I could draw into them. Well, Feng Shui was like, yeah, this is a thing. You're like, right? Yeah. This is actually something they teach at Pasadena. I was like, I knew it, So he had a silhouette thing that put into words what I was trying to do, Rama, So, but those two guys, and in a 2-year period, I went from Kinko's and school to working at Mad Engine and doing freelance comics. Like I was able to just put it together, Yeah.
Yeah. And when did the transition into like game design happen, or game character design? Was that when you got the Earthworm Jim thing, or was that before?
Well, I mean, I didn't get the Earthworm Jim. It was Crash Bandicoot, but
sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Bandicoot.
It's okay.
I had that in my head from another.
But it's funny though, because Earthworm Jim's personality. Remember, I told you I worked at this game magazine. I worked at a game magazine company called Play Magazine.
Yeah.
The guy who owned that was Dave Halverson. He used to own Game Fan in the 90s. He started that. He was friends with Doug TenNapel and all those guys. So he used to hang out with him. Dave is if you look up Dave Halverson, you'll go see he looks like David Lee Roth. He's crazy. He's a good dude, but he's a wild personality. Earthworm Jim's personality is based off Dave. I got that straight from Doug TenNapel. Yeah, I got that at Comic-Con because when I was first working at Play, they always had a booth, and I was like, hey, Doug, I'm working with Dave. And he's like, oh, yeah, because he had these silkscreen Jim prints he was doing. Like he hand printed these giant. And so he drew me a Jim on there, but he was like, yeah, this is based off Dave's personality. I'm like, what? So then I go back to Dave. He's like, oh yeah, they gave me this. And on Dave, he pulled out, he had actual hand-drawn concept art from the first game on the wall. Man. They gave him as like a thanks for
that's awesome.
Just being freaking weird. Yeah, groovy. Like that came from Dave for 100%. Yeah. But in terms of where that started, professionally, they didn't start till 2017. This is a long road, and I think really games works like this. Like, unless you're a genius illustrator, like, when I say genius, like Nicholas Cole, Nikolai Salvatore, John Lauren, I'm sure there's plenty of other people. There's just the people I worked with. Even Brett Bean. I worked with Brett Bean on Crash Bandicoot 4. Unless you're at their level, you really need 99%. You need to have a production-friendly talent. They don't consider design production-friendly. And production-friendly really means anything that's going to be tangibly used by the gamer, the user. So you got to build 3D models. You want to be able to paint. You want something that's like that drawing for games. So I was just like, and I get carpal tunnel the minute I start button clicking in 3D. Yeah. And I've tried with the Wacom. It doesn't work. So I just like the
same. Yeah.
I don't know why, man. So I just figured games weren't an option to me, but turns out they were for a bit.
Yeah. And you mentioned freelance comic stuff for a bit. So what was some of your early comic work?
So initially I was going to I met this guy, Adam Kogan, who was the head of development at Screwhead. No. They did the amazing Screw-On Head PSP games and the Junior PSP games, right? I forget the name of that company right now. But Kogan was a good dude. He saw my work on this thing called Sketchboard. There was this website called Shane Glines Sketchboard Sessions. Shane Glines, famous animator. You've seen his art. He draws like Bruce Timm, but he really not. Yeah. Like he has an Alex Toth, Anyways, he used to have this website before DeviantArt, a message board, right? And we would all post art on there. And when I say all of us, bro, this is before they were public. Sean Gordon Murphy, Scotty Young, Mark Brooks, Sean Galloway, Josh Middleton. I mean, the list goes on and on. Like that's the murderer's row of people that were on there. And he saw my art on there because I did these like giant, they look like absolute Batman turtles. I did these giant chonky turtles. And he was like, those turtles look dope. I'm like, Peter Laird didn't think so. Because Scott Cohen, who was drawing the book at the time, saw those and asked me to do some backups. And Peter said, no, they're too big. But Adam hit me up to do some comics, and he wanted to go to Comic-Con in San Diego and pitch them to various companies for publishing. So we did this comic called Mosaic, went to Comic-Con for 2 years. Image bought it. Jim Valentino picked it up. Like, we got the okay from Larson, because Eric Larson will destroy anybody. Like, if your art's, so we was just run it by Eric Larson. If we run it by Eric Larson, we don't have to go see anybody else.
Yeah.
And he just gave us, it's perfect to show it to somebody. You know what I mean? So Jim bought it, and then Adam didn't write any scripts. Like, I don't know why, but it didn't happen. He just didn't write the scripts. So one of the companies that we had showed it to, Ape Entertainment, said, well, if you're not going to be doing the Mosaic thing, would you like to come over here? They had a deal with Kevin Grievous. Kevin Grievous is a creator of the Underworld movies. He's an actor, writer, right? He wrote all the Underworld. He's in them, big dude.
Big dude, yeah.
And they were doing a line of 4 books at the time, like kind of like Cliffhanger, but Kevin Grievous's Cliffhanger kind of thing. And so they wanted me on one of these books called Monstroids, which was going to be like, the way I saw it wasn't, Kevin would tell you it was like Mad Monster Party, the puppet show thing from the 70s. And I was like, that shit sucks, Kevin. So I don't, and I love stop motion. I can't pitch that. But I was like, but if we treat it like a Turtles 80s, like a lost 80s, 90s action figure line, like, monsters are rebuilt like RoboCop to fight crime, then I could get my head around that,
Yeah.
So that was the book I was supposed to draw. And we did a 0 issue, which was okay. And we did a first issue, which I was really proud of. But that the recession and everything kind of killed a lot of that momentum. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Now we've touched on San Diego Comic-Con quite a few times. It sounds like it's been, location wise, it's been a staple of your comics experience. Was there a point when you started going to cons and you were, to San Diego, and you were really working on your art, that you started to show your work to people at the cons, or that's not something that happened for you?
No, I never thought what I did or how I drew would fit in with mainstream comics.
Gotcha.
Well, I got some hope when Scotty Young first appeared in X-Men Unlimited 37, because that's how I naturally drew. I had that same kind of Carlos Meglia, Earthworm Jim, Bill Watterson mix, and some people call it street style. I don't know what that means. I'm not from the streets. I love graffiti and juxtapose and urban art, but I'm not going to pretend I was, like Mark Echo's Getting Up. You know what I mean? Like Mark Echo's Getting Up and Jet Set Radio are the closest experiences I have to that. Right. I was just sitting in my room drawing. But no, I figured, and the way I thought about it was always, if I do comics, I'll have a day job. I'll do my own comics, like the way Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird did Turtles, because Turtles to me was like, this is brilliant, but this would never get published by Marvel. And it should. What they were doing should have, but the minute John Romita and those guys bring that real professional brush stuff, right, to like Marvel, you get that, and then you get the Jose Garcia Lopez at DC, and then it becomes very well rendered art, right? And then you go into the Art Adams. You get more of the funner, the rougher stuff when Liefeld and those guys come in, because it's more rougher. It's more, attainable. So I guess, I don't know, like relatable, or I don't know what the word would be. I know everyone has their opinions about the way people draw, but I always figured, to me, those are like surface level conversations. Deep level understanding of what resonates with people. Bill Watterson, like those characters don't have knees half the time. You know what I mean? Like there is a relatable experience. I think one of the things I ever heard was Matt Groening said once at Bongo Comics did something at Comic-Con. And he said that when you design a character, the ones that tend to succeed are if people could randomly draw them on a napkin, Right. So like, and I think that's held true, like Zim, or even now the Amazing Digital Circus, kids can draw that stuff, And that manga is the most relatable, really, when you think about it. In the mid-90s, I had this buddy, Pete, when I was a senior in high school. He was a freshman. Pete loved manga. And I had my hand in it, right? But I was like the blend. But Pete was 100% manga. So I took him to Comic-Con in 96, and he did show his art and his manga stuff. And editors there, I remember I got so mad. This one guy told him, this has no future. He told him he has no future. And I got so pissed, you know, I was like, how are you going to tell this kid this dude's got no future? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, through life, we split up. But when I was at Comic-Con 2 years ago, I saw Pete again. I reconnected, and he hasn't been drawing, you know, and I told him that story. He's like, I don't remember. I'm like, yeah, I remember the look on your face, dude. And I wanted to reach over and just punt, because what took over, right? He couldn't be further from the truth. But these I'm not saying these editors, but people in positions of power, right, or control. This is where I'll get more Todd Beats-ish, right? But it is true. They instill their wants and their likes on the industry. And in t-shirts, as what you're wearing now, first thing I learned in t-shirts, I'm not buying the shirts, someone else's. So I got to think about who comes into a store, right? And the people that come into Walmart have a different mindset than the people that are entering Dillard's or entering into Claire's or going into Hot Topic or going into Spencer's. Like, they all have a different mindset, different focus or attention. And it has nothing to do about the style. It has everything to do about the attitude or the impression it leaves upon people. And so I just figured my art will never resonate because of that. What I'd seen, I don't believe it, you know? So I never pitched to Marvel or DC or any of those guys.
It's interesting you say, you know, around that time that the editors were saying there was no future for that manga style, when all the early Image guys were heavily influenced by manga and anime. Like, Todd has talked about it a lot. Rob Liefeld's talked about it. Like, those guys were all pulling from there. Not just them, but in 96, Joe Mad was already out. Oh, yeah. Right? And what they would call the Hispanime artists, like Humberto Ramos. I mean, first time I saw Humberto Ramos's art was in the 93 souvenir guide for the X-Men 30th anniversary at Comic-Con. He did this thing in there. I just thought, whoever drew this, who is it? I looked at that because I always look at the names. Humberto Ramos, not a normal, not normal to see the Hispanic names, right? So as a dad with a Hispanic father, I'm like, that's fucking dope, you know? And then that guy, I see on that Impulse comes out, right? And I remember Impulse. The art catches my eye and I see that name. I'm like, that's that dude, right? So Impulse, I'm like, no, man, it's here. You know, like, it's here. It's not going away. And you're a jerk. You know. Now, whose work were you mainly following when you were coming up? Like, was like you said, you saw Scotty Young's work and you kind of thought, okay, maybe there's sort of a pathway here for me in mainstream comics. You know, since he's doing it, was Scotty ever an influence on your work? Well, that was for one set. No. Well, it's funny. I was sitting next to Scotty in 2004 at Long Beach Comic-Con, right? So the first time I bought a table was in 2004, right? Okay. And I was at the Long Beach Convention Center in Artist Alley, which facing an empty wall. But sitting next to on my right is Scotty Young, right? As he's really breaking in. And on my left is the Red Star guy. If you remember the comic, Red Star was huge. Yeah. It was a guy Christian, and then the colorist was Snakebite. And like, I remember Snakebite. Yeah. Snakebite had just given me like props at Comic-Con the year before. You know, we were pitching this book out of Ukiyo, me and my girlfriend at the time. And she wasn't keen on it. And he was like, you got it. This is dope. And I'm like, shit, Snakebite plays. That's crazy. Yeah, yeah. But I you couldn't feel more inferior next to those two. I bet. Like, what am I doing here, man? I just, you know, like, what am I doing with my weird art, you know? Like, but in terms of influences, I've always had a hand in everything. So like, I try to tell people like I bought Spawn every month. I bought Savage Dragon. I bought Bone. I bought Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I bought the Calvin and Hobbes collected editions. You know, later on in the late 90s, I bought everything Oni Press did, from Magic Pickle and the Coffin, the Clerks comics, Girl Scouts, you know, while also buying the Ultimates when it came out, you know, or when I was a kid, I would, you know, try to get my hands on Drew Struzan art, you know what I mean? Like, as well as like Monet, like I like Monet's painting, you know, and Alphonse Mucha, right? So like, and then when I saw Joe Quesada use Alphonse Mucha backgrounds in his art, like in the Ninjak days, I was just like, yeah, guy was dope. You know, like, it works. Art Nouveau rules. So I've just always had like, you know, whatever catches what resonates, you know, and usually it comes from like things that are
deeply personal to the person's identity or psyche or something, right? Like
Okay.
early Stephen Platt was Stephen Platt doing whatever was in his head, right? By the time you get to Soul Saga, he's trying to do the Weisenfeld Mobius thing. But before that rough stuff, man, I'm all about it, right? I'll buy that all day long. I'll buy that, and I'll buy Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise because there's nothing like it. You know what I mean? Like it's so I really just resonate with things that I identify with the person who created it.
Yeah, early Platt, like Moon Knight and all of that stuff was pretty killer.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of doing his McFarlane thing a little bit, but he had his own flavor on it.
I call it the heavy metal, right? Heavy metal Liefeld, like you know, like it's one part Masamune Shirow and like Simon Bisley, and like it's got some Jim Lee, it's got some McFarlane, it's got a little bit of everything, but that's a young mind remixing and doing what feels right as opposed to what may be technically correct, you know? Like you do want to understand perspective and learn that, but then you have to you really do have to unlearn. You learn it and then you have to unlearn the controls because the controls will tighten and form you into a little cog. And that cog has then since trained AI machines to spit out the same thing, right?
It has, yeah.
Right? So, you know, identity is really I think the person that caught my eye the most and the one that I always, anytime I want to interview, I always try to preach the name of was Carlos Meglia. Carlos Meglia is a dude. I don't sit there with his comics open and try and draw it, but Carlos Meglia's mind is how I just instinctively think. And Meglia created a comic. He started in the 70s and he eventually created a comic called Cyber 6, which was huge. And it had an anime series animated by TMP, the guys that did the best of the Batman animated series cartoons. And it's all done in his style. He did a thing called Star Wars Underworld, which is great, and Superman Infinite City, and a thing called Canary. And then he passed away due to a heart attack in 2008 at 50 years old, dude. Like at the top of his game. So I always say, if you don't know who Carlos Meglia is, please go look. That. And all the episodes of Cyber 6 are on YouTube for free. You can watch those.
The beauty of YouTube. You can find all this older, obscure stuff.
And Scotty, you know, I've had a chance to speak here and there. Scotty and Sean Galloway and those guys, anytime, and John Samariva, anytime I bring up Meglia, they're like, yeah, we're huge fans. So it's behind the scenes. Umberto Ramos was friends with them, so there's the Meglia influence. Like Meglia, and he did go to Wildstorm, but they never put him on anything that would showcase the dude's talents. And I even asked John Lehman about that, but he's like, yeah, I really wasn't in charge at that time, you know? Yeah. Because I was like, they kept putting him on like kid books or I don't know, it
didn't take full advantage of his greatness.
No, and I fear my own career, you know, like sometimes, you know, like, do they really know what I can do? You know, sometimes that's where it's like, whatever I'm not doing spun, the next thing is definitely my own stuff. It's all stacked up because the only way you're going to be able to show what you can do is when you show them what you can do. You know?
Yeah. And speaking about showing what you can do and getting your stuff out there, like you recently got going pretty big time on Whatnot. You did that collab stream with Todd Beats on there, and now I see you're getting on there quite regularly and drawing live. Like, what's that been like for you?
Well, super fun. I mean, it's like the best of going to conventions without, you know, having to pay for booth space and eat horrible food.
Yeah.
You know, so it really, I mean, Todd's been doing it for a while. And I just was telling him, you know, I was like, yeah, you know, like there's these lulls in between. And I do my own commissions in between projects. There's lulls in between projects. And I do my own commissions, but I'm drawing alone. And I used to stream all the time, but YouTube back in 2017 killed that reach. I mean, when I tell people they killed the reach, I used to make like 10 grand a year on ads. Now I make $30. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they wouldn't share streams and Twitch unless you're really I don't know. You know, I can't break through. Yeah. I like interacting. I like showing people and doing, because I'm always helping Todd, you know, so he told me, I think you do really good on Whatnot. So he, you know, gave me a boost on his channel, which God love him, dude. He did not have to do that. And yeah, I do that now. I do it randomly. Like, weekly, randomly, maybe not weekly. I found the best thing is to not have a set schedule. Because one, I'm still doing, published work. And if I wasn't, I'd be doing my own comics. But two, I do think people like the element of looking forward to something, like excitement.
For sure.
But if you're like, I'm there Monday through Wednesday, the lull, right? Like, you'll be there Friday. I'll like, no, I won't,
Maybe a little pop up. Got to surprise them, shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's one part like art demo, one part like eBay is not the best word for that. I don't like to use that term at all.
Yeah,
it feels just what it was like to be at a convention. The best of when I was behind a booth, and not because there was a time when Artist Alley was about just being an artist.
Yes.
Not, and I remember when it happened. Not when it was this wall of prints right behind some guy just erect this giant wall of prints, or behind you so it's facing into your, ecosphere. And I was like, what is this? Like I get doing something, but like this, what is this swap meet like mentality that's happened to Artist Alley,
Yeah. And like 30 booths with very similar looking prints. That's what I've noticed. Like we have the two big cons here are Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, and then we've got Rose City Comic Con down there in Oregon where our buddy Todd is. And Rose City's still holding on. It still feels more like a Comic Con and more artist focused, but Emerald City has turned into just this whole...
They all had rules, James, right? Artist Alley used to be, because the tables are less money, it's not treated the same as a commercial table. If you want a commercial table, you buy a commercial table. If you're going to be an Artist Alley, here's the rules. No single banner, nothing over 6 feet. You know what I mean? There was all these rules. And then all those rules go away, right? Comic-Con and San Diego being the worst offender. All those rules go away. It becomes like indie press in some way, but without books. And and these guys, and I'd meet them, and these were nice people, but I tried to explain, because some of them, there was one guy I was super annoyed with because he was sitting next to me, and it was just like endless headshots. Like you could tell he's drawing half a head and flipping it. It was a business for him. I get it's a business. This is all a business, but you're also diminishing. I had to tell him, I get what you're doing, because he came to me. I'm a big fan. I'm like, thanks, but I'm not a fan of this, why not half of this? Why gotta have one of everything? Why? If you don't have something, that guy, why gotta take it? You gotta take it all. So only gonna be you. Hey, why don't we just have a UConn? Why don't we just have a U store? If you're that good, why not do a pop-up store? You know what I mean? City to city and track people. Because I get the idea of when people go to, this all started, in my opinion, around the Spider-Man movie, right? The first Spider-Man film when it hit. When people started coming in to see the movies and get movie info and meet movie actors, because before then, movie actors at Comic-Con was seen like a goof. It was a way to meet like older TV stars, which I didn't think was a goof, because my uncle went to the 1977 Comic-Con to meet Leonard Nimoy, because it was on Mission Impossible, and he was able to see that early Star. He saw the Star Wars promo. It was in the same room. It was in the same room, but I didn't know that was a goof. But it was a goof to people. However, when the Spider-Man thing came in, and they're bringing their kids, and they want to get a souvenir. The way I think about it is like, when you go to the circus, right? Or you go to like SeaWorld or Disney, you want to get a souvenir on the way out. That's what and they want to get something they know. They're not looking for your indie book or your original idea. They're looking for a Spider-Man or something the kid already knows. Yeah. And that was not being provided by the big two, right? They don't have a presence at these conventions in that way. So artists sort of fill in the void. Okay, I have no problem with that. I draw fan art and I'm all for it. I'm not a fan of 100 things, you know what I mean? And like, God, man, you ever see someone's booth, you're like, how is this fire code friendly? Totally. One bad incident, the fact that it hasn't all burnt up and killed someone by now is a freaking miracle to me,
Now, you mentioned some desire to do a creator-owned project of your own. Do you have some
plenty
ideas that
not ideas, scripts? Yeah, I've been stockpiling for a decade.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only reason why it hasn't happened is I haven't been able to put it all together in a way that I can be consistent. I don't have the natural born talent. Like, I know people think that doesn't exist. It does. There are people who have it. Not everyone has it, but there are people who have it. Joe Matt had it. His kid's drawing when he was 16. Frank Frazetta, if you know him, he was drawing full comics when he was 12. Watercolor.
Yep.
You know, some people do have it. I do not. What I do have is I just don't quit. Like, you know, I can do this and then get better at this and put this together. And I've made comics and I've done graphic novel. Like Spawn Kills was a way. Can I just get it all together in black and white and, you know, and can I get that process and it be consistent? Okay. But can I now integrate, can I do it and the colors and can I, you know, the writing and the lettering, can I put it all together is basically in a consistent fashion that I think, you know, 12 to 18 months, you could do a graphic novel or 6 issues and, you know, or maybe 4 or 5, however you want to do it, or even manga size if you want to, but whatever.
Yeah. That
for me has always been the bigger thing, you know, and I just don't want to spend 3 years. I could 3 years and brute force through one of them, but that actually would make you worse. Like you know, like the longer you're on a project, there's a diminishing return. There's this like ramp, and you hit this thing, and then there's a point where it's
right.
You know, like you gotta finish at some. So yeah, that's basically it. But I'm at that point too where it's like, if they want to do another Spawn, it helps the cachet. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think it would just have to be a perfect storm of having a little lull, or is it going to be more of planning and just?
No, it's going to be when there is a Spawn, my nights will be that. So the first thing right now is when there is a Spawn, I'm putting together an art book because I just haven't done that over the years. Yeah. So when that's complete, then when I'm not on Spawn at nights, I have my commissions and my whatnot during the day, like 5-hour period, and I have a 5-hour period, 5 or 6 hour period at night. Okay. And so that night thing will be the art book, and then even if there's some downtime on Spawn, sometimes there is. Sometimes you don't get a script for weeks.
Right.
It's not gonna be sitting around not doing nothing. I'll just be doing thumbnails or hashing away at that. But in a meaningful, it has to get a production way. Like I have to.
Right.
Yeah. So it will get done. So I don't want to announce, but the first will be a 2-part, 2-issue, 2-part, because I wrote them as 22 pages each. Okay. Complete story. And I would just say like, it's complete. The script is done. It's ready to go. So it's just thumbnailing. And what I want to get out of it is on Spawn Kills, there was a lot of, how do I say this? 2-page a weeks, right? Right. Unlike say maybe manga, I had to have a certain level I felt they expected, you know? Right. So, but I feel I could do less in some ways, but more. So I want to get that up to 4 or 5, but not be noticeable to anybody.
Gotcha.
You know, that's basically it.
Now, with this creator-owned work, are you planning to pitch it to a publisher, or do you think you would want to crowdfund?
I'll go Kickstarter. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I did Kickstarter in 2013. That was going to be my plan. I was on Kickstarter in 2010 when Kill Screen first launched.
Oh, okay.
We were relaunching this magazine called Game Fan. And I was like, I mean, the economy had just killed Play Magazine. The owner, Dave, wanted to go right into doing another magazine. And, you know, he made me art director because everyone else quit. And I just didn't want to go back to t-shirts. So I'm like, sure, I'll stick around doing this. But I was like, we can do this Kickstarter thing. He's like, no, we're going to go back to, you know, Barnes & Noble. But I did do that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get into it, but I had a business partner who, let's just say that.
Right.
And I felt after that experience, I needed to not go that route for a while. Enough time has passed and I've been consistent with other projects that whoever felt they were slighted by that experience will know that, well, what have I been doing since then? Right. Yeah. So I've been consistent and I just have to rebuild trust with that audience, you know?
For sure. Well, as we start to wrap up here, what kind of things can you talk about as far as your current work? Do you have any, I mean, you're doing the Spawn stuff. Do you have anything else you would like to let people know about? I mean, you talked about briefly that you're working on getting your art book together. Do you kind of have a timeline for that of when you'll be putting that out?
Well, I had a
Ideally.
timeline. I had a full-time timeline until the thing is we're doing Spawn kills. We're doing another Spawn kills. It's just a matter of when they get around to completing their end of it. So
yeah.
So in the meantime, I do have 2 covers that are about to be announced for the I Saw Spawn, which is the sequel to I Saw Santa. They're gonna show those off soon at Comic-Con this week. Nice. So I'll have I think those are the main covers. They're not even like variants. So that'll be kind of cool.
Very cool.
And then, I'm going to do the art of Sketchcraft. I will launch a pre-launch page when I feel I'm within. My art book isn't like my art on white backgrounds. Right. If you know, like the creature box stuff, it's going to look more like that. It's going to be more design heavy, and it goes, but I'm about 40, 50 pages in, and I got to get 124 for like stretch goals done. I want it all done before I go.
Oh, so, smart. Yeah. Gotta do that.
So it'll either be September, October. If I can't do it by October, I will just move it to spring and over, and, save people the trouble for Christmas.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I'll be looking for the pre-launch. Why don't you let everybody know the best places to follow you online?
Sketchcraft.
Sketchcraft
everywhere.
Sketchcraft everywhere.
Sketchcraft.com, Sketchcraft Instagram. I cornered the market on that. Like, I
love it.
Over a decade ago, So Sketchcraft.
Yeah. And Sketchcraft on Whatnot as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Although Whatnot, it is Sketchcraft on Whatnot, but like user ID is like 114 or something.
Oh, yeah.
But if you type in Sketchcraft, it come right up. And I got a show. It's going to be tomorrow, or by the time this hits, you're not going to know. But I'd say randomly weekly I'm on there, but I'm always posting semi-daily onto the Instagrams, and I have a newsletter that I don't spam. But if you wanted to get a custom commission, right, that's where I do it through the newsletter and to people who subscribe there. Yeah.
Nice. So subscribe to the newsletter. And would you say Instagram is kind of the best place to like see the announcements for the Whatnot streams and all of that? Yeah.
I mean, in the stories and everything else,
Awesome,
I'm always sneaking it in, how to get around the algorithm, right?
I know. It gets harder every day.
Yeah. I know. They're like, we know you're trying to sell stuff, like, what? Shame on Rob, No,
it's so weird because it's so random. Like YouTube recently for me, it's like my YouTube shorts went from getting hundreds and, sometimes thousands of views to now like the last 2, like it had 3 views. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I haven't changed anything. Like,
their algorithm changes. What they do is they want Mr. Beasts, they want a personality. I just want people to be able to find what they would like to see.
Same.
So right now, Whatnot is a place where if you just want to hang out and see someone craft, you know what I mean? Like knit it's crazy. You can see the things you want to see as opposed to being fed what's the difference? The difference would be like it almost feels like the WWE or something now, right? Where they're like, we're going to push these guys on you, versus, you'd like to see this. Oh, well.
Right.
Oh, well, Yeah.
Rob, I've had a wonderful time chatting with you today, man. This was fun.
I appreciate it, James. Always fun chatting up the comics.
Yeah, and I'd love to have you back on when you start getting your creator-owned thing together so we can let everybody know about it.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I will not announce until it's ready to be,
Perfect. Well, listen, man, hang out with me here for a moment. I want to give a shout out to my Patreons, Mr. Brandon Paul at bpaulart. He does the book, The Adventures of Chuck Maxwell. Volume 2 or issue 2 is getting ready to come out. He's working at it diligently. Make sure you check him out. We also have Michael Gardner. It's me, Mike G, on Instagram. Check out Mike's work. He's also on Whatnot and does some awesome sketch covers and things. Just appreciate everybody that tuned in. Make sure to go follow Sketchcraft everywhere on social media that you venture. And in the meantime, everybody, keep it nerdy.